Former SU and NFL quarterback Don McPherson now joins Gomez and Company thanks to Fellman Brothers Automotive on TK99 and TK105, the flagship station of Syracuse Orange football.
Don McPherson, Donnie back. How are you?
I'm good, Gomez. How are you, sir?
Good. Lisa live from the loft at the home office here this morning.
Lisa, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Lisa, how are you?
Yeah, Don, we were just comparing notes there on the number of times where I've gotten into work, for example, get all set up, and it takes me a few minutes to get things going, and I look over and I notice that I forgot to charge my phone, and it ain't going to happen that day. And is that what happened this morning for you?
It's what happened, and I have to I don't know if it's not a confession, but share that I have an iPhone 8. So it's about a 7-year-old phone. It's got a button. I've been told by college students that it should be in the Smithsonian. And I refuse. It doesn't have a case, no case, and I refuse to upgrade. And I do so for a reason. It's not just that I'm an old fart. It's that I understand how change is hard for people.
That's right.
And so I keep my iPhone 8 as a reminder that we all struggle with change in different ways.
That's a good spin. I love that, Donnie. That's a good.
Exactly.
Oh. Well, Don, unfortunately, we're talking about a loss here this morning, Friday night in the Dome, as Stanford and Syracuse in their first ever meeting. And, you know, when we were watching that game, and I'm sure as you were watching that game, Don, everybody watching in the Dome or on television knew where that 4th and 9 play was going to go, and still unable to stop that pass.
Yeah, it was odd that it was one-on-one coverage on that side, and that's going to be scrutinized, you know, obviously until the next game. That it came down to that, but I thought you know the team was fairly listless the entire game. Nothing seemed to click, and came out and just felt like in the first quarter they were very, very flat. So that last play, you know, I tend not to focus on those last-minute heroics or failures because it's a 60-minute game. But that last series was just not good.
Now, and you're right. I mean, the team couldn't get any rhythm going with the running game. I think it was a total of like 26 yards or something like that.
I'm looking at it as we speak because I was as we thinking about this call and then chatting with you. I just wasn't sure what they did on running 26 yards. Just like I don't even know how you do that with Quentin Allen in your backfield and Willis in your backfield. How you only end up with 26 yards.
That's only, we were joking earlier, Donnie, that's 26 yards more than I had rushing on Friday. Yeah,
exactly. That's kind of the point. I guess that's actually a very accurate statement.
But that part. Now, do you take anything away, Don, the fact that they were listless, obviously, and had struggled, with the run game, a couple of interceptions for Kyle McCord, but despite all that, we're basically a play away from still being able to win that game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as I watch games all day long, and I'm a pollster for the National Football Foundation. So, I was one of those ridiculous people up at 2 o'clock in the morning watching Kansas State, as they say, wet the bed against BYU. And across the board, with the exception of maybe Texas and Tennessee right now, every other team is looking really kind of just average. No one's really standing out. No one's popping right now. I think it's a byproduct of transfer and teams starting to gel and find themselves. So even with 26 yards rushing, Syracuse was still in that football game, still had a chance to win that football game. And I think that speaks more to just sort of the parity that exists in college football, if you will.
And it was a little bit of that, too, Don. For both teams, Syracuse and Stanford, they'd never played each other, and other than game film, and they obviously knew who the key players are on both teams, but first-time effort against each other, does that have anything to do with the way they played?
I think it does. I talked about this last week with Brian Higgins on ESPN Radio on Thursday that this was an attitude game. You have to find a reason to get excited, find a reason. Like there were a couple of other games you saw during the week where the guys were just fighting right out the gate. Right, there was no love lost between the teams. There was a little bit of chippiness and like physically getting into fights as the game was even starting. That didn't exist here. You had two schools that had no familiarity with one another. A number of players, maybe a few like Lamson, who transferred over to Stanford from Syracuse. Other than that, very few players were recruited by Stanford or vice versa, and so. You have a lot of unfamiliarity, so the team really had to find an edge. What is that edge that gets you out, especially on a Friday night, that gets you out and gets you fired up? And that clearly did not happen because they came out looking very, very flat.
Donnie, I really appreciate Kyle's that he took responsibility for maybe a couple of throws that he thought should have been better. And I felt good about that despite the loss. I feel like he was very mature. I was wondering if you had any thoughts about his performance.
I think just what I just said, Lisa, I think you're right. The maturity to recognize that he came out and didn't do what the things he needed to do, take care of business, despite having, an incentive to do so. Just come out and do your thing. And he has no choice but to own at least one of those interceptions, I think, because he just, was not very sharp. And fortunately, I say fortunately, but this is a tough loss because it happens we forget that Stanford's a conference opponent. It's early season. It's coming up a bye week. When you have a bye week, people almost forget you're there sometimes because you're not part of the fanfare of a Saturday afternoon. So I can imagine that Kyle is feeling the pressure of it, the pressure of coming off a bye week, and you're kind of sitting around all week when you have a bye week, and then when you come out and you don't do well, you think, what didn't I do? What didn't I take advantage of when I had time to do so during that bye week? And I think that adds to what eats at you if you come out and you don't perform well. So I can see where Kyle's feeling like, wow, I didn't take advantage of that bye week. I didn't take advantage of that downtime to really get myself ready for that ball game.
On to the next task at hand, Donnie. Holy Cross coming to the Dome, a noon kickoff, sold out, so it'll be great atmosphere at the JMA Wireless Dome. And is it like alumni weekend and parents weekend and a bunch of those things all roll into one? So the atmosphere should be good. But what do the team have to look out for and avoid heading into a game like this?
I think it's what I just said. Gomez, I think that they need to come out and dominate. It's funny because I was just on campus at Holy Cross about 2 weeks ago, and I completely forgot that they were on the schedule. And if you've ever been to Holy Cross, you've been to Worcester. It's not a big time campus. It's a small campus, kind of tucked there in Worcester. And I went, wow, we'll play these guys. We should just dominate these guys. And I don't mean that in any disrespect to Holy Cross. What Syracuse needs to do to get back into, I hate to say it, they need a 70-point ball game. James Madison put up 70 on North Carolina. Syracuse should put up 70 on Holy Cross. And like I said, no offense to Holy Cross, but no mercy. They need to go out and dominate that game and get people's attention. Like, wow, Syracuse just put up a whole bunch of numbers. Let's get Sports Center to show a bunch of touchdown passes from Kyle McCord to whomever's on the receiving end.
And does Holy Cross have any? I can't remember the guy's name. Gordy played at Holy Cross. And Blakey went to the NFL. Like the same, right? Gordy
They had a guy back in the dark ages, back in the leather helmet age of football, named Gordy Lockbaum, who I think was third or fourth in the Heisman Trophy voting that year. Yeah, I remember that guy. He was a good-looking guy.
Well, Donnie, listen, thank you. As always, great chatting every Monday morning. It's our Monday Morning Quarterback with Don McPherson. Have a great week, Don, and we'll chat next week.
We'll chat next week. I promise to have the phone show.
Thanks, Donnie. Bye-bye.